Princess Zara stood alone on the high balcony of her crystal palace. The purple moons of her homeworld cast strange shadows across the scarred landscape below. 3 years had passed since the war ended, but the marks of battle still remained. On every surface. Burned forests, broken cities, and empty spaces where millions once lived told the story of the great conflict with the Kralik hordes. The princess pressed her hands against the smooth railing and felt the cold stone beneath her fingers. Her tall frame shook slightly as the night wind blew across the balcony. Like all Vethany, she stood nearly 7 feet high with skin that changed colors based on her feelings. Right now, her skin showed the deep purple of sadness mixed with the dark blue of loss. These colors had not left her body for 3 long years. Zara reached into the folds of her flowing robes and pulled out a small pendant. The blue crystal had once belonged to her daughter Lyra. It used to glow bright with warm light, but now it remained cold and dark. The princess held it close to her heart and remembered the last time she saw her child alive. Commander Lyra had been 25 years old when she volunteered for the dangerous scout missions near the Outer Rim. The Kralik were pushing deep into Vithany space, destroying everything in their path. These brutal creatures showed no mercy to anyone they captured. They lived only to fight and conquer, turning peaceful worlds into burning wastelands. Lyra had been brave like her father before her. General Keth died fighting the first Kralik invasion 15 years ago, leaving Zara to rule alone and raise their daughter. Both mother and child knew the risks of war, but duty came before personal safety in Vethany culture. When the call came for volunteers to gather intelligence behind enemy lines, Lyra stepped forward without fear. The last message from her daughter came through the communication systems on a cold morning 3 years ago. Lyra reported finding a massive Kralik fleet gathering near the Zephyr Nebula. Her small scout ship had somehow avoided detection and was sending back vital information about enemy numbers and positions. Then the signal went silent. Search teams found debris from Lyra's vessel scattered across 3 star systems. The wreckage showed signs of heavy weapons fire from Kralik battlecruisers. No bodies were recovered, but the damage was so complete that survival seemed impossible. After 6 months of searching, the military command declared Commander Lyra missing and presumed dead. Zara closed her eyes and tried to push away the painful memories. As regent of the 4th sector, she had responsibilities to millions of citizens. The war was over now, won at terrible cost by the combined forces of 12 different species. The Kralik threat had been ended forever, their homeworlds reduced to lifeless rocks by the final assault. Justice had been served, but it felt empty without her daughter to share the victory. The other noble families had urged Zara to accept her loss and move forward. Several had even suggested she consider taking a new mate to produce another heir. The princess rejected all such ideas with barely controlled anger. Her skin would flash bright red whenever anyone mentioned replacing Lyra, and wise courtiers learned to avoid the subject entirely, but alone on her balcony in the quiet hours of night, Zara allowed herself to remember her daughter's laugh. Lyra had inherited her father's sense of humor along with his courage. Even as a small child, she could make the servants smile with her silly jokes and playful tricks. As she grew older, that same spirit made her popular with the younger soldiers. Under her command, the princess remembered teaching Lyra how to pilot her first hover bike when she was 12 years old. The girl had crashed into the garden fountain 3 times before finally mastering the controls. Each time she fell into the water, she came up laughing and eager to try again. That determination served her well in military academy, where she graduated at the top of her class despite being younger than most of her peers. Zara had been so proud when Lyra received her first command assignment. The young officer looked magnificent in her dress uniform, standing straight and tall with her skin glowing the bright gold of excitement and joy. She promised her mother she would return safely from her first mission, and she kept that promise. For 5 years of dangerous service, but the final mission had been different. Intelligence reports suggested the Kralik were planning something massive near the Outer Rim territories. Normal patrol routes were proving ineffective at gathering the needed information. Volunteer scouts were needed to penetrate deep into enemy Space and report back on hostile activities. When Lyra volunteered, Zara wanted to forbid it. Her maternal instincts screamed warnings about the danger, but her duty as regent prevented any show of favoritism. If she protected her own daughter, while sending other mothers' children into harm's way, it would destroy her authority and reputation. The Vitheni respected leaders who shared the burdens of sacrifice. So she watched her only child board, the small scout vessel, and disappear into the darkness between stars. The waiting began immediately, growing more intense with each passing day until the final transmission brought both vital intelligence and personal disaster. The information Lyra died gathering proved crucial to winning the war. Her sacrifice, along with thousands of others, saved billions of lives across the galaxy. Monuments were built, ceremonies were held, and her name was carved into the great memorial walls alongside all the other heroes. But none of that brought comfort to a mother's broken heart. Zara opened her eyes and looked up at the purple moons hanging in the night sky. Somewhere out there among the distant stars, her daughter's remains drifted in the cold void of space. The princess whispered a prayer to the ancient Vitheni spirits, asking them to guide Lyra's soul to the peaceful afterlife their people believed awaited the brave. A soft chime sounded from inside the palace, indicating the approach of dawn. Soon, the servants would arrive with the day's reports and schedules. Zara would put on her official robes, arrange her features into the proper expression of calm authority, and conduct the business of governing her sector. But for now, she remained on the balcony, holding her daughter's pendant and remembering better times. The princess did not know that far across the galaxy, on a small blue world called Earth, her daughter was very much alive. Pain filled every part of Lyra's body as she slowly opened her eyes. Smoke drifted through the cracked window of her escape pod, and the smell of burning metal filled her nose. She tried to move, but sharp agony shot through her left arm and both legs. Her luminescent skin flickered weakly, showing the pale yellow of severe injury mixed with the gray of confusion. The pod had crashed into what appeared to be a forest of tall green trees. Broken branches and scattered leaves covered the twisted metal hull. Through the shattered viewing port, Lyra could see blue sky and white clouds above. The air felt thick and rich with oxygen, much denser than the thin atmosphere of her home. World. She tried to remember what happened after her scout ship exploded. The Kralik battlecruiser had appeared without warning, emerging from behind a dead moon to unleash devastating weapons fire. Her vessel's shields failed within seconds, and the hull began breaking apart. The last thing she recalled was diving into the emergency escape pod as explosions tore through the bridge. The pod's navigation system was completely destroyed, its displays dark and silent. Lyra had no idea where she was or how long she had been unconscious. Her internal chronometer showed that 18 hours had passed since the attack, but that told her nothing about her location. The escape pod could have drifted through hyperspace for days before crashing on this unknown world. She managed to activate the pod's external sensors and performed a basic scan of her surroundings. The readings showed a planet with gravity slightly lighter than Vitheni standard, breathable atmosphere, and no immediate radiation dangers. Life signs were abundant in the forest around her, mostly small creatures that seemed harmless. The climate appeared temperate and stable, but the sensors also detected something else. Artificial structures existed somewhere beyond the forest, suggesting the presence of intelligent life. The readings were confusing, though, showing technology levels that seemed inconsistent. Some signals indicated advanced civilization, while others suggested primitive development. Lyra tried to stand, but her injured legs would not support her weight. At least 3 bones were broken, and her left shoulder had been dislocated when the pod hit the ground. Her medical training told her she needed immediate treatment, but the emergency supplies in the pod were limited. Without proper healing chambers, her recovery would take many weeks. A sound from outside made her freeze. Something large was moving through the forest, pushing aside branches and disturbing the fallen leaves. The pod sensors showed a single life form approaching, roughly 6 feet in height and moving on 2 legs. The creature's biosignature was unlike anything in Vithany databases. Fear shot through Lyra as the footsteps came closer. In her weakened condition, she could not defend herself against even a small predator. Her sidearm had been lost when the pod's interior was torn apart during the crash. All she could do was lie still and hope whatever was coming would pass by without noticing the wreckage. Jake Morrison had been leading a group of hikers through the remote Montana wilderness when the strange object fell from the sky. The brilliant streak of light followed by a distant explosion sent his clients running back toward their vehicles in panic. Jake tried to calm them, but their fear was too strong. Within minutes, he found himself alone in the forest with only his emergency pack and survival training to guide him. 20 years of military service had taught Jake to investigate unusual situations, rather than run from them. The crash site was roughly 2 miles away according to his GPS unit. If some kind of aircraft had gone down, there might be survivors who needed help. His Marine Corps training demanded that he at least check for signs of life. The trek through the dense forest took him nearly an hour. When he finally reached the impact zone, Jake stopped in amazement at what he saw. The crashed object looked like nothing he had ever seen before. Its hull was made of some kind of metallic material that seemed to shift color in the sunlight. The design was sleek and organic, unlike any human aircraft or spacecraft. Steam rose from the wreckage, and Jake could hear faint sounds coming from inside. Someone or something was definitely alive in there. He approached carefully, watching for any signs of danger. His hand moved instinctively to the knife on his belt, but he left the weapon sheathed. If survivors were trapped inside, they would need rescue, not threats. Jake peered through the cracked viewing port and felt his heart stop. A humanoid figure lay inside the pod, but this was clearly not a human being. The creature stood nearly 7 feet tall with pale blue skin that seemed to glow with its own inner light. Its features were elegant and alien, beautiful in a way that transcended species barriers. The being's eyes opened suddenly, revealing irises of deep violet that seemed to hold intelligence and pain in equal measure. For a moment, neither human nor alien moved as they stared at each other through the damaged window. Jake could see fear in those strange eyes, but also a desperate need for help. Lyra had never seen anything like the creature standing outside her pod. It appeared to be male, with dark hair and brown eyes that held surprising gentleness. His clothing was simple and practical, designed for movement through rough terrain. Most importantly, he showed no signs of hostility despite discovering something that must seem impossible to his kind. The alien creature began making sounds that were clearly some form of communication. His tone was soft and reassuring, and his body language suggested he wanted to help rather than harm her. Lyra tried to respond, but her voice came out as a weak whisper in her native language. The creature frowned in concentration, clearly trying to understand. Jake realized he was looking at an injured being who needed immediate medical attention. The fact that she was obviously not human hardly mattered in the face of such obvious suffering. His military training had included first aid for battlefield injuries, and these looked serious enough to be life-threatening if left untreated. He began examining the pod's exterior, looking for a way to open it safely. The hatch mechanism was completely alien, but Jake's mechanical knowledge helped him identify what appeared to be manual release controls. After several minutes of careful work, he managed to get the door open without causing further damage to the structure. The alien female tried to sit up when he entered the pod, but pain forced her back down. Jake held up his hands in what he hoped was a universal gesture of peaceful intent. He pointed to her injuries and then to himself, trying to communicate his desire to help. Understanding seemed to pass between them despite the language barrier. Carefully, Jake began assessing her condition. The injuries were serious but not immediately fatal. Her left arm was definitely broken and both legs showed signs of fracture damage. Internal injuries were possible, but she seemed alert and responsive. With proper care, she might recover completely. The biggest challenge would be moving her from the crash site to somewhere safe. Jake's cabin was 3 miles away through rough terrain, but it was equipped with basic medical supplies and completely isolated from civilization. If he could get her there without causing additional injury, He might be able to help her heal. Lyra watched the strange alien work and felt a spark of hope ignite in her chest. Whatever species he belonged to, this creature possessed compassion and intelligence. His gentle hands moved with practiced skill as he examined her injuries, and his brown eyes showed genuine concern for her well-being. Perhaps she had found an ally on this unknown world. 6 months had passed since Jake carried the injured alien female to his mountain cabin. What began as a rescue mission had transformed into something neither of them could have imagined. The small wooden structure that once served as Jake's quiet retreat now buzzed with activity as two very different beings learned to live together. Lyra sat by the window in Jake's main room, her legs finally strong enough to support her weight again. Her luminescent skin had returned to its normal, healthy glow, showing the soft green of contentment mixed with occasional flashes of gold when something amused her. The broken bones had healed completely, aided by her species' advanced regenerative abilities and Jake's careful nursing. Language had been their first major challenge. Jake spent hours each day teaching Lyra basic English words while she shared the fundamentals of Vithani speech. Her people's enhanced learning capabilities made her progress much faster than his, but Jake's determination kept him working even when the alien sounds seemed impossible to pronounce correctly. They started with simple concepts like water, food, and sleep. Lyra would point to objects and speak their names in both languages, while Jake repeated the sounds and wrote phonetic spellings in a notebook. Within 2 months, they could hold basic conversations about daily needs and simple emotions. During her recovery, Lyra revealed amazing facts about her true identity. She was not just any Vithani warrior, but a princess of the royal house, daughter of Regent Zara, who ruled the 4th sector. Her military rank as commander meant she had authority over thousands of soldiers and dozens of starships. The war that brought her to Earth had lasted 7 years and cost millions of lives across multiple worlds. Jake listened to these stories with growing amazement. His own background seemed simple by comparison. Born in a small Montana town, he had served 20 years in the Marines before retiring to work as a wilderness guide. No royal blood, no command authority, no advanced technology. Just a regular human trying to make a quiet living in the mountains, but Lyra found Jake's stories just as fascinating as he found hers. She learned about human history, their struggles and triumphs across thousands of years. Wars fought with primitive weapons, discoveries made through trial and error, art and music created from pure inspiration. The complexity of human emotion and creativity amazed her. Her people had long believed that species without faster-than-light travel were barely intelligent. The Vithani measured advancement through technology and military power, dismissing worlds that had not achieved spaceflight as unworthy of serious attention. But living with Jake showed Lyra how wrong those assumptions could be. Jake demonstrated remarkable problem-solving skills that had nothing to do with advanced technology. When winter storms knocked out the cabin's power, he rigged a water wheel generator using spare parts and basic tools. When wild animals threatened their food supply, he built clever traps that captured without killing. His mechanical knowledge and practical wisdom impressed Lyra more than any Vithani computer system. The human's capacity for kindness also amazed her. Jake shared his limited resources without complaint, gave up his comfortable bed so she could recover properly, and spent countless hours teaching her about his world despite having no obligation to do so. Vithani culture emphasized duty and honor, but Jake's generosity came from simple compassion. As winter set in, they worked together to repair Lyra's communication device. The small unit had been damaged in the crash, but Jake's electrical skills, combined with Lyra's technical knowledge, proved sufficient for the task. After 3 months of careful work, they managed to establish a weak signal with Vithani space. The first message brought wonderful news. The war was over, the Kralik threat eliminated, and her mother alive and well, but it also brought difficult choices. Lyra could request immediate rescue, returning to her royal duties and comfortable life, or she could remain on Earth to learn more about these remarkable humans. Jake urged her to contact her family immediately. He understood the pain of losing loved ones and could not imagine making a mother suffer when reunion was possible. His own parents had died in a car accident 5 years earlier, leaving him with deep regrets about time not spent together. But Lyra hesitated to leave so soon. During the long winter months, their relationship had grown beyond simple friendship. Jake's quiet strength and moral courage reminded Lyra of the best qualities in her own people. His willingness to help strangers without expecting reward showed a nobility that had nothing to do with royal birth or military rank. Jake found himself equally drawn to Lyra's intelligence and determined spirit. Her skin would glow bright gold whenever she laughed at his jokes, and the silver flash of curiosity appeared whenever he taught her something new about Earth. Despite their physical differences, she was beautiful in ways that transcended species barriers. Spring brought a test that would define their partnership forever. Heavy rains caused flooding in the valley below Jake's cabin, trapping a family of campers on a small island surrounded by rushing water. The local rescue services could not reach them in time, and hypothermia threatened to kill all 4 people. Before help arrived, Jake prepared to attempt a rescue using his small motorboat, knowing the odds of success were poor in such dangerous conditions. Lyra insisted on helping despite having no experience with water rescues. Her enhanced strength and speed could make the difference between success and disaster. Working together, they managed to reach the stranded family. Lyra's ability to lift heavy adults like children proved crucial when evacuating injured victims from the rocky island. Jake's piloting skills and knowledge of river currents guided them safely through the floodwaters. All 4 campers survived with only minor injuries. The rescued family never got a clear look at Lyra, seeing only glimpses of a tall figure helping in the darkness and rain, but Jake saw her clearly throughout the entire rescue. Her skin blazed with the bright blue of determination as she carried unconscious children to safety. The silver of focus mixed with gold of joy as each life was saved from the floods. That night, as they warmed themselves by the cabin's fireplace, Jake realized something had changed between them. Lyra's willingness to risk her life for complete strangers showed a heroism that went beyond duty or honor. She helped because it was right, not because anyone ordered her to do so. Lyra watched Jake tend the cuts and bruises he received during the rescue and understood something important about human nature. This man had everything to lose and nothing to gain from risking his life for strangers, yet he never hesitated when others needed help. That kind of moral courage was rare even among her own warrior people. The communication device finally achieved full power the next morning. Lyra could now contact the Vithani fleet and arrange for immediate rescue. Ships could reach Earth within days, ending her exile and returning her to royal privilege. But she found herself reluctant to make that call. Jake sensed her conflict and made the decision for both of them. He activated the device himself and sent a message to her people, informing them of her location and requesting pickup. When Lyra protested, he explained his reasoning with typical human wisdom. Her mother had grieved for 3 years, believing her daughter was dead. Every day of delay caused unnecessary pain for someone who deserved to know the truth. But Jake also made another suggestion that surprised them both. Perhaps it was time for humans and Vithani to meet officially, and he would be willing to serve as Earth's first ambassador if she thought it might help. The Vithani rescue ship arrived on a clear morning 2 weeks after Lyra sent her message home. Jake stood beside her on the hillside overlooking his cabin, watching the sleek vessel descend through Earth's atmosphere with impossible grace. The ship made no sound as it landed, its advanced engines producing only a faint shimmer in the air around the hull. Lyra's skin showed the bright silver of excitement mixed with swirls of gold that indicated joy and anticipation. After nearly 3 years, she would finally see her own people again. But the colors also contained traces of purple that suggested sadness about leaving Earth and the human who had become so important to her life. Jake felt his own mixed emotions as the ship's romp extended and several tall figures in elegant uniforms emerged. These were Lyra's people, her rescue team, and they moved with the fluid grace he had learned to associate with her species. Their skin showed various shades of blue and green, indicating emotions he was still learning to read. Commander Dex approached them with obvious relief visible in his posture. His skin glowed the warm yellow of happiness as he saw Lyra standing, healthy and whole, beside the primitive human. As second in command of her original mission, Dex had blamed himself for failing to prevent her disappearance during the battle with the Krolak. The reunion between Lyra and her fellow officers was touching to witness. Jake stepped back respectfully as the Vithani embraced their lost princess, their skins flashing through rapid color changes that indicated profound joy and relief. Several of them wept openly, their tears glowing faintly in the morning sunlight. But the mood shifted when Lyra introduced Jake as her rescuer and friend. The other Vithani examined him with poorly concealed surprise and confusion. Their databases contained basic information about human civilization, but nothing had prepared them for meeting one in person. Jake seemed so small and fragile compared to their enhanced physiology. Lyra spent an hour explaining her experiences on Earth, describing Jake's kindness and the remarkable qualities she had discovered in human civilization. Her fellow officers listened politely but with obvious skepticism. How could such a primitive species possess wisdom worth learning? Their technology was thousands of years behind Vithani standards. Commander Dex privately urged Lyra to leave the human behind and return to her royal duties immediately. Her mother's grief had been terrible to witness, and the entire sector waited for news of her safety. This backward world had nothing more to offer someone of her station and importance, but Lyra had made her decision during the long nights of waiting for rescue. She asked Jake to accompany her back to Vithani space, not as a prisoner or curiosity, but as Earth's first unofficial ambassador. His presence might help her people understand that advancement could not be measured by technology alone. Jake accepted the invitation despite his fears about leaving Earth forever. His quiet life in the Montana mountains had been comfortable, but Lyra had shown him wonders beyond imagination. If his presence could help prevent future conflicts between their species, the risk seemed worthwhile. The journey to Vithani space took 12 days aboard the rescue vessel. Jake spent most of that time in the observation deck, staring in amazement at the wonders visible through the transparent hull. Stars wheeled past in brilliant displays of color, and entire galaxies stretched across the viewing ports like scattered jewels. Lyra served as his guide through the ship, explaining the various technologies and systems that kept them alive in the vacuum of space. Jake's mechanical knowledge helped him understand basic principles, but the advanced engineering was far beyond human capabilities. Fusion reactors the size of small rooms powered faster than light engines that could cross the galaxy in weeks. The other crew members gradually warmed to Jake's presence as they observed his interactions with their princess. His respectful curiosity and obvious intelligence impressed them, even if his species seemed hopelessly primitive by their standards. Several began teaching him basic Vithani customs and protocols he would need at court. During the voyage, Jake learned about the devastating war that had brought Lyra to Earth. The Krolak had been a species devoted entirely to conquest and destruction, consuming entire worlds before moving on to the next target. Their brutal efficiency had terrified civilized races across the galaxy. The final battle had taken place in the Andromax system, where 12 different species combined their fleets for one desperate assault on the Krolak homeworlds. Billions died on both sides before the enemy was finally defeated. Victory came at such terrible cost that even the winners questioned whether civilization could survive another such conflict. Jake also learned about the complex politics of Vithani society. Princess Zara ruled the fourth sector as regent, but her authority came from military success rather than simple inheritance. The noble families competed constantly for power and influence, using marriage alliances and economic partnerships to advance their positions. Lyra's return would shift the balance significantly. As the only child of the current regent, she was heir to vast territories and resources. Her experiences on Earth and friendship with a human would be seen as either weakness or wisdom, depending on political perspectives. The ship's sensors detected Vithani patrol vessels long before they reached the homeworld. Word of Lyra's survival had spread throughout the sector, carried by faster communication systems ahead of their arrival. By the time they entered the home system, dozens of ships had gathered to escort the princess back to her mother's palace. Jake watched through the viewing ports as they approached the world where Lyra was born. The planet appeared blue and green. From space, not unlike Earth, but with two large moons that cast strange shadows on the surface. Cities sparkled like jewels on the continents below, connected by transportation networks that glowed faintly in the darkness. The scale of Vithani civilization amazed him. Millions of structures covered the landscape in geometric patterns that spoke of careful planning and advanced engineering. Orbital platforms surrounded the planet, serving as docking points for the massive cargo ships that supplied the growing population, but Jake also noticed something disturbing as they descended toward the surface. Large areas of the planet showed signs of recent reconstruction. Blackened regions where forests once grew, geometric scars where cities had been rebuilt after destruction, memorial sites marking battles fought in defense of the homeworld. Lyra explained that the Kralik had reached even this far into Vithani space during the worst phase of the war. 3 major population centers had been destroyed before the enemy was driven back, costing millions of lives and leaving permanent marks on the landscape. The reconstruction was nearly complete, but the memories would last forever. As they approached the royal palace, Jake felt nervous anxiety building in his chest. Soon he would meet Princess Zara and face the judgment of an entire civilization. His simple human nature would be examined and evaluated by beings who considered themselves far superior to his species. Lyra sensed his worry and tried to reassure him with stories about her mother's wisdom and compassion. Princess Zara had ruled fairly for 20 years, earning respect through careful diplomacy and just decisions. If anyone could understand the value of human friendship, it would be her. The palace appeared below them like something from a fantastic dream. Crystalline towers rose hundreds of feet into the air, their surfaces reflecting the light of the twin moons in rainbow patterns. Gardens and courtyards spread between the buildings, filled with exotic plants and flowing water features that created music in the evening breeze. Landing platforms surrounded the main structure, designed to accommodate vessels of various sizes and configurations. Their ship settled onto one of these platforms with mechanical precision, its engines powering down to silence as the journey finally ended. Jake could see crowds gathered in the distance, held back by security forces but clearly eager for a glimpse of their returned princess. News of her survival had brought celebration throughout the sector, but also curiosity about the strange aliens she brought with her. As the ship's ramp extended toward the platform, Jake took a deep breath and prepared to step into an alien world, where everything he said and did would be judged by standards he barely understood. Princess Zara was holding court in the great throne room when the impossible message reached her. Palace guards burst through the ornate doors, their usually calm faces showing the bright yellow of extreme excitement mixed with silver disbelief. The head of royal security approached her throne with steps that barely contained his eagerness to share the news. The princess listened in stunned silence as the guard reported that a ship approached the homeworld carrying her daughter. Commander Lyra was alive, healthy, and requesting permission to land at the royal palace immediately. The words seemed to echo strangely in Zara's ears, as if spoken in a foreign language that made no sense. For 3 long years she had mourned her child's death. Memorial services had been held, monuments erected, and official records closed. The entire sector knew that Princess Zara had lost her only heir in the war against the Kralik. Now that same daughter was somehow returning from the dead. Zara's skin blazed through every color in the emotional spectrum as the news sank into her mind. Gold joy mixed with silver confusion and purple disbelief, creating patterns that shifted so rapidly the watching courtiers could barely follow them. The princess rose from her throne on unsteady legs, her hands gripping the crystal armrests for support. All court business was immediately abandoned as Zara rushed toward the landing platforms. Her elegant robes billowed behind her as she moved faster than royal dignity normally allowed. Noble families and military officers followed in her wake, equally amazed by the miraculous news of the princess's return. The crowd gathered at the landing platform fell silent as the rescue ship touched down with perfect precision. Zara pushed through to the front, her heart pounding so hard she could feel the pulse in her throat. 3 years of grief and loss hung on this single moment when she would either embrace her living daughter or discover some cruel mistake. The ship's ramp extended slowly, creating a path between the vessel's interior and the platform where hundreds of witnesses waited. Zara held her breath as a tall figure appeared in the doorway, backlit by the ship's internal lighting, so that features were difficult to see clearly. Then Lyra stepped into the afternoon sunlight, and there could be no doubt about her identity. She stood as tall and proud as her father once had, her luminescent skin glowing with the warm colors of health and happiness. The years of separation vanished in an instant as mother and daughter looked at each other across the platform. Zara ran forward without caring about royal protocol or watching crowds. Her daughter met her halfway, and they embraced with desperate intensity while their skins blazed gold with pure joy. Both women wept openly, their tears glowing with the same inner light that illuminated their bodies. The watching nobles and officers stood in respectful silence as the royal family reunited. After 3 years of separation, many of them had children of their own and could understand the depth of emotion being displayed. Some wept along with their princes, moved by the powerful scene before them, but the mood shifted dramatically when a second figure emerged from the ship. Jake Morrison stepped carefully down the ramp, obviously trying not to interfere with the family reunion taking place nearby. His simple human appearance seemed almost shocking after the elegant beauty of Vithani. Physiology, gasps and murmurs rippled through the assembled crowd as they got their first look at a member of the species their databases classified as barely intelligent. Jake appeared so small and fragile compared to the 7-foot-tall Vithani surrounding him. His dark hair and brown eyes seemed primitive next to their luminescent features. Palace guards moved instinctively toward what they perceived as a potential threat, their hands moving to weapons despite having no direct orders to act. The idea that such a crude being could be standing freely on royal property violated every security protocol they had been trained to follow, but Lyra stepped protectively in front of Jake before anyone could approach him. Her skin flashed the bright red of anger mixed with defensive purple as she faced down the armed guards. Her voice carried absolute authority as she declared Jake to be under her personal protection as a guest of the royal house. Princess Zara studied the strange human who had somehow become important to her daughter. Jake stood quietly despite being surrounded by beings who could easily kill him, showing neither fear nor aggression in his posture. His brown eyes met her violet ones with calm respect but no trace of submission. Lyra began explaining Jake's role in her survival, describing how he had rescued her from the crashed escape pod and nursed her back to health over many months. She spoke of his kindness, his wisdom, and his willingness to leave his own world to ensure her safe return to her family. The assembled courtiers listened with growing amazement as their princes praised qualities they had never associated with primitive species. Jake's compassion had saved her life when advanced Vithani technology failed. His simple human wisdom had taught her valuable lessons about the true meaning of civilization and honor. Several noble families exchanged meaningful glances as they realized the political implications of these revelations. If humans possessed more intelligence and virtue than previously believed, it might be wise to establish friendly relations before other sectors claimed that advantage, but Princess Zara's attention remained focused on the human who had preserved her most precious treasure. She approached Jake slowly, studying his face and posture with the careful attention of someone who had spent decades evaluating the character of potential allies and enemies. Jake met